You're listening to The Power Project. I'm your host, Brandy Voth, and it's my goal each week to inspire and empower you to go out and live purpose-filled lives and own your God-given power. Some weeks that looks like spotlights of women that are leading in business, ministry, and nonprofits. Sometimes we share stories of people that have overcome insurmountable odds in life and turned obstacles into opportunity. Occasionally, I throw in a little purposeful business coaching with tangible takeaways for you. And then weeks like this, we talk about subjects that we women deal with on a daily basis. And in honor of Mother's Day, this week, we are talking about all things mamas. What we struggle with, what's great, what's beautiful, and what's sometimes downright hard. So let's jump right in, shall we? Mother's Day. Do you like it, love it, hate it, care less about it? We are sharing all of the deets today. So for starters, I want to say it's okay. I know that we have an audience that some of you are not moms. Some of you want to be moms one day. Some of you don't care to have children. And that's okay. I think that you'll find something in this episode for everyone. Now, while I love all things Mother's Day, I do want to make certain I come from this in a place of sensitivity, because while I enjoy Mother's Day and I enjoy celebrating all of the mothers in my life, I enjoy really giving respect to the women that have built me in essence. I also realize that Mother's Day can be a hard time for some women. And I know that sometimes it's easier just to close your computer than it is to see the post about it. So I just want to say to that mama scrolling through Facebook on Mother's Day that is seeing everyone's beautiful family pictures and celebrations while struggling to find your own joy, I see you. I know that there are women out there who struggle every Mother's Day. I know that you can't scroll through social media because it makes you feel empty and incomplete. I also know that there are some incredible mountain-moving mamas out there that are fighting for your child's very life, and Mother's Day doesn't seem joyful. I see you mamas that are sitting next to your baby's hospital beds, holding their hands and praying for a miracle. I see you. I know that there are warrior mamas out there who have suffered unthinkable tragedy and lost your children. Not only do I see you, but I commend you. I believe that you are the strongest human beings in society. I can't imagine what you've been through. I can't imagine what you go through on a daily basis, but I see you. I see you fighting for your other children. I see you fighting for your marriage. I see you fighting for yourselves. I see you fighting for your downright sanity. I see you fighting for your healing and your peace and your comfort. I see you. And I think that you should have a freaking cape. To the overcomer mamas, the ones that have fought through hell and back for you and your children, whatever obstacles you've had to overcome, whatever adversity you've had to fight, whatever it is that you have had to stand up and take the stand for you, for your children, to be the best mom you can be, to be the best person you can be, to be the best woman you can be, I see you. To the survivor mamas whose womb has never been filled, I see you. To the mamas whose wombs have been filled and lost, I see you. I can't even wrap my brain around the pain that you go through, but know that your pain is noted and your pain is seen. And I am sorry, and I'm praying for your journey. To the fighter mamas that may not have a relationship with your children right now, but won't give up until you do, You are not alone. You have a community of women of support that want to see you succeed in this relationship, that want to see your relationship with your children healed and mended. And I believe that there is a rainbow at the end of the tunnel. I believe that there is light. I believe that your relationship will come back around and come back around full circle and stronger than it ever was. But I see you. And to all the mamas that can't look at a picture of a smiling mom on Facebook on Mother's Day without your heart breaking in two, I see you. Just know that while I talk about Mother's Day and post about Mother's Day and celebrate all things mama, I don't for 1 second take it for granted. I don't talk about it or post about it without considering how painful this day can be for some others. I'm aware that when Mother's Day is over, those of us with our families and with our lives and with our kids, we'll go back to life as we know it. We'll rush our kids out the door and off to school. We'll yell at our kids to stop picking on their brother. We'll shuttle kids to baseball practice, gymnastics, cheerleading practice, etc. And you'll continue life as you know it, which is a life that we can't imagine, and it's pain that we haven't experienced. I wish that there was more that I can offer you, but just know that I do see you, I do acknowledge you, and I do love you. I have so many friends that have had different journeys with motherhood, and I just always wanted to acknowledge the fact that not everyone's journey looks the same. I have a dear friend that I watched go through miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage, and she wanted so desperately to be a mama. And I will never forget, there were 3 of us that were all pregnant at the same time with our second babies. And we were having a Super Bowl party, I believe. And we were all sitting around the table. There were 4 women total. And there were the 3 friends of ours that were myself and 2 others that were pregnant. And then my girlfriend that had struggled with infertility. And we were discussing pregnancy and pregnancy woes and the upcoming baby and our due dates and natural birth versus C-sections versus being induced. And I realized she was sitting there taking in the entire conversation, and I was stricken by such guilt because I knew her pain. And I later told her after everyone left, I messaged her and I said, I am so sorry that we were so insensitive and we sat around this table the entire time talking about pregnancy and babies. I hate that, and I apologize. And she came back and said, don't you dare apologize. I love hearing the stories. I love hearing all about your journeys because I know that one day it will happen for me. I don't know what that looks like, but I know that I'll be a mom, and so I'm taking in all that you have to share along the way. So fast forward, she has a beautiful 6-year-old little boy, and he was carried by a surrogate, and he is her and her husband's biological child. He is just the cutest thing ever, and it's been one of my greatest pleasures to watch her be his mom. So I just want to say I have other friends that I've experienced go through the foster process. I've watched my girlfriends that have had drug-addicted, cocaine-addicted babies brought into their lives that have cried and shook, that they could only hold and rock throughout the period of withdrawals. And they've nursed these babies back to health, and they've helped these babies get back on track, and they've watched these babies thrive in their care and get healthy, and then see the babies return back to their biological families. I've seen other friends that have fought like hell through the foster to adopt process. I've watched them give their foster children these beautiful lives and provide them with all of the nurturing and love that these children could ever hope for and wish for. And they be the only parents that these kids have known because they've been in their care since they were 10 months old or 3 weeks old. And I've seen them have to fight a system for years on end to be able to finally adopt those children and say that they are theirs. I've seen friends that are adopting internationally that have been in the process for years, that have children that by all rights in the children's homeland country are legally adopted by my friends in the U.S. But there is some type of hang up with getting these kids into the U.S. and into their custody. I've seen friends of mine that have raised children that were not their biological children, that they actually have no legal rights to, but they stepped up to the plate when no one else would and took these children in under their wing and raised them to become amazing human beings. I have witnessed people that come together as parents and step-parents that co-parent children and put all of their selfish needs to the side and focus on raising that child, loving that child, and raising them in the healthiest, most loving environment that that child deserves. I have literally seen personally every type of parenting situation, mothering situation that you could really imagine. I have them in my life close to me. So I don't take for granted the fact that my natural family and children was a blessing from God. And I know how grateful I am to have the children that I have. I'm so grateful for my family. But that doesn't mean that it hasn't been hard. That doesn't mean that there's not times that I feel like a total failure. That doesn't mean that at times raising my children, when my head hits the pillow at night, I don't lay there and think about all the things I've done wrong and all the things I could do better. And I opened this up as a question on a couple of social media groups. I also opened it up to some family members of mine because I was curious. We hear a lot about mom guilt and comparison amongst mothers with each other. And I wanted to know because I thought, I have a grandmother with 8 kids who worked all the time, and the kids basically raised themselves out of necessity. And I thought, I wonder if mom guilt has always been around, or if it's something that our society, our culture has created. Is it a social media thing? I laughed because I was always the crafty mom. I was always crafty growing up and as a young adult. And I always teased that I was crafty long before Pinterest. And then Pinterest came along and they stole all my ideas. But seriously, the desire to throw these over-the-top, bigger-than-life parties, if that's not really your thing, but you're feeling like you have to do that, is that a social media thing? Is it imposed upon us by social media, or is it just a natural factor? I feel like my grandma didn't have the liberty or luxury to have mom guilt because she was just too busy trying to make sure all the kids were alive. But yet I talked to my mom, who there was no social media, and she says she constantly felt guilty because she didn't read to us enough at bedtime, which, by the way, makes me start questioning my own mothering abilities because she read to me at bedtime way more than I read to my kids at bedtime. But every season brings a new challenge, and I just want to speak to those challenges throughout the stages of life that I personally have experienced. If you're the mom who has just had a new baby and you feel completely lost, like you have no idea what to do, I see you, girl. I was you. I know what it's like to have your first baby. You look at him and you think, oh my gosh, he's beautiful. And you've never experienced love more deeply than this very moment. I remember not being able to believe how my husband and I had made such a perfect human being. And then you leave the hospital, you take him home, you bring him into his new house, and you lay him in his bassinet as you sit there and smile at him, at how perfect he is, how beautiful he is. You watch his little chest rise up and down as he sleeps peacefully in his bassinet, and you think all is right with the world. And you listen to his little coos and his little noises. And then suddenly, you realize that his chest isn't rising up and down in the same rhythm that it was just a second before. You start staring at the rhythm of his tiny chest. You become obsessed with it. You count how many breaths he's taking in a minute. You start to feel panic creep in, and you start worrying what would happen if he doesn't remember to breathe. So you quickly scoop him up out of the bassinet, you take him over to the couch where you lay him on your chest as you lie down, and you count his breaths every single minute until you finally fall asleep because you're so exhausted from the entire ordeal. You wake up at 2 a.m. with the baby still sleeping on your chest and still breathing, I might add, and you instantly feel like a failure. The number one rule that you read in What to Expect When Expecting and What to Expect with a Newborn is to not co-sleep. You have broken the first rule. Actually, no, you've broken the second, because the first was you were going to have a natural childbirth with no epidural, and instead you ended up with a C-section. And now you have broken the second rule of co-sleeping. You now realize that you have no idea what on earth you're doing, and you can't believe that anyone has entrusted you with the life of another human being. How on earth are you going to raise this child to adulthood? Then there's the mama with an infant that doesn't sleep and wants to be held constantly. You can't sit him down. He wants to be held or fed constantly. And if those two things don't happen simultaneously, he screams and he cries, which means you're probably currently hiding in your closet right now, listening to this podcast just in order to gain a few moments of uninterrupted sanity. Girl, let's pause for a moment of silence because I get it. Right now, you're thinking that he doesn't like you and you're not certain that you like him either. But know this, you will get through this. You will survive. That little infant that won't sleep, that you have to hold and rock and feed constantly, will turn into a toddler that wraps his chubby little arms around your neck and kisses your face and tells you that he loves you and that you're beautiful. Then he'll be a little boy that picks you wildflowers. And eventually he's going to turn into a young man with the funniest personality. He's not going to quit being strong-willed or a challenge because that is who God created him to be. But you will laugh at his unique perspective on things, and you'll be amazed at the way his mind takes the whole world in. You'll not only like him, and he'll like you, but you'll actually relish your time spent together, and the conversations you have will be epic. To the stay-at-home mom whose baby is about to start school and you're losing your mind, I get this, girl. Trust me. I lost my mind the entire summer leading up to my baby starting school, and I organized his closet, his room, his drawers, everything perfectly because in my mind, I couldn't control him going to school, but I could control what that process looked like. I could make it easier for him to get up in the morning. I could have his clothes organized to where that he could get himself dressed, and maybe it would make it just a little less difficult for me. But I remember the gut-wrenching sadness of knowing that someone else would have my baby for 8 hours a day. I remember knowing that his safety was turned over to someone else for the majority of the week. I remember thinking that they would now spend more time in the care of others than with me for the next 13 years. I would wish that I would have held them more when they were home with me every day, and that the last 5 years had been the fastest of my life. I remember hoping and praying that I had done everything right. I remember praying that I had taught them to be kind to others, to wait their turn, to use their manners, to wash their hands after using the bathroom and before they eat, and for the love of all things sacred, to not drink from the water fountain where all the germs resided. I remember hoping and praying that they would be a light to others that they come in contact with. I hoped that they would remember their personal boundaries and use their voice if that was ever violated. I prayed that they would not learn about things that would violate their innocence. I hoped and prayed that they wouldn't be bullied or be the bully. And I remember hoping that their teachers would love them and would care for them and that they would feel safe. But honestly, the number one thing I remember is how absolutely lost I felt. I had invested 8 years of my life with kids at home. I had spent every day having someone need me. And I honestly wasn't ready to not be needed daily. If you're that mom, know that this is a new chapter. You've done your job and they won't forget it. They're going to come home excited to tell you everything they've learned and all their new friends they've met. And guess what? This time is a time that you get back to you, who you were before you became someone else's mommy. And that chick, well, she's pretty awesome. You'll find out.
This episode is brought to you by Brandy Voth Beauty. Have you tried the #1 skincare brand in all of North America? Well, if not, today is your day. Head over to the-powerproject.com, click on Powerful Beauty, and take a 30-second skincare consultation to see what products are recommended for your skin concerns. Email yourself those results, and then I will personally mail you a thank you gift for your time. That's thepowerproject.com, Powerful Beauty.
If you're the mom of a teen that is standing on what seems like the scariest precipice yet, I see you. I see you and I am with you. I am standing here, girl, in solidarity with this fear and trepidation of the great unknown. I've joined the support groups on Facebook, which, by the way, I'm not certain was such a good idea. Rather than helping each other and building each other up and encouraging each other, it seems to be like basically a space for us to gripe about our teenagers and how terrible they are. By the way, I don't think they're terrible. I remember being a teenage girl. I remember being so gripey and miserable and making other people's lives miserable. And I didn't know why I made their lives miserable. I was annoyed with myself. It's such a hard time going from being a kid to being an adult and grasping with letting go of the fun, carefree days to having to be more responsible and more mature. It's scary. I feel for our teens. And our teens today are growing up in such a harder time than they were when we were teens. It seems like I blinked and my son has all of a sudden become a man. He's beautiful, he's sweet, he's kind-hearted, but a man nonetheless. And there is nothing I can do about it. I would give anything to go back to him being 3 years old, standing in my living room in his little tuxedo that was 2 sizes too small that he had worn in a wedding, and him asking me to go put on a princess dress and dance with him. And you know what? I did. I had a newborn baby that happened to be asleep for once in his life. And I went and I put on my princess dress and I danced with him. And you guys, I am so thankful that I did, because now it's other girls that he wants to dance with. And I know as I stand in this unknown territory that I can't keep him from doing stupid things or making mistakes. I mean, his dad and I made our own decisions and our own mistakes, and he's going to have to do the same. I wish I could just put him in a bubble and keep him from getting hurt, but I can't. I also know that inevitably he will think I'm a moron, and he will not take my advice, and that's okay. he has to take his own steps on this journey. Don't get me wrong, I'm going to provide guidance, but ultimately it's up to him. All I can do right now is speak truths into him. Truths that I hope he will always remember and hold close to his heart. I'll tell him that he's loved beyond measure, that he's seen and known, and that he's more valuable than he could ever imagine. I'll tell him that his worth does not lie in his peers' opinions. I hope to teach him that he's not defined by the number of a test grade or a sports score, and that his character is not intertwined with athletic achievement or academic credit. I hope that he knows his character is instilled within him from his Creator and is comprised of his moral values. I hope that regardless of whatever path he takes, he knows that no matter how many times he stumbles, he doesn't have to walk it alone, and that I will always be there to help him back up. I know that it is a scary time to be raising teenagers, but I believe that we can not only do it, but do it well. And I want you to think, when you're thinking of your mom guilt, or when you're thinking of life being tough in whatever season you're in, I want you to remember, God made you the mother to your children. Your children were placed in your life for a reason, because he believes in you and he trusts you to raise them. And he has a plan. You guys were placed in each other's lives as part of a master plan. There is nothing you can do to screw up his plan. What if you woke up tomorrow morning with only what you were grateful for today? What would that look like? I am so grateful that God chose me to be the mother to my kids. And I'm so grateful that he brought those two unique human beings into my life. There seriously is no greater joy in my life than to get to be their moms. I love it, and I'm really excited to see the adults that they grow up to be. And I'm doing my very best to raise well-rounded human beings that are contributing members of society. But I know very well that one day they may be perched up on a shrink's couch sharing about how I'm the reason they're screwed up. But I'm no expert. I do have a few takeaways that I just want you to remember on this Mother's Day. For starters, I want you to know that it's okay. It doesn't matter if you screwed up today. It doesn't matter if you screwed up in the past. You're doing your best. And you're doing a great job. So keep your head up. Also, it's okay to take some time for yourself. It's okay to go to the spa. It's okay to go watch a movie by yourself. It's okay to choose what you want to eat for dinner instead of what your kids want to eat for dinner. And listen, can I be completely honest? I am a firm believer that our kids came into our lives. They joined our lives. We did not join theirs. I do not believe your life has to revolve around your children's activities. It is great for your kids to be in sports. It's great for you to be a fan of their sports. But you don't have to put your entire life on hold because of that. Honestly, you do not have to make every single baseball game that little Johnny plays, because he started playing at 3 and he's going to play until he's 18. That's roughly 150 games if he doesn't play travel ball or tournaments. And that is only for one sport. So it's okay if bunko night falls on the same night as a baseball game. Go laugh with your girlfriends and fill your cup. It will be okay. I also like to point the fact out that it's okay to let your kids bleed. And don't get me wrong, this is not saying don't take care of their medical emergencies, but when your kids, at whatever stage you're at, okay, if you're in the baby stage, the toddler stage, the kid stage, the teen stage, it's okay for them to run wild and free. It's okay for them to push the limits. It's okay for them to learn that they're going to stumble and fall and bang a knee. You can help them get back up, but they need to learn and experience things on their own. They need to know that there are boundaries that they can cross, and what happens when they cross them. And speaking of boundaries, let's go ahead and talk about something I see on a regular basis. It is not your job to be a fun mom. It's not your job to be their friend. It is your job to give them rules. Kids love boundaries and love. That's what they want in life, truly. They want boundaries and they want love from you. So it's your job to teach them right from wrong. It's okay to be strict. It's okay to take a stand, even if other parents aren't taking that stand, because you are responsible for how that child turns out in life. You and only you. Not your friends, not your kids' friends' parents, not so-and-so whose parents let them go to the movies at whatever age and stay out till whatever time. You get to decide what is right for your kids and what is wrong for your kids. And it's okay to stand firm on that decision. You don't have to cave to the pressures of others. And your kids will be grateful that you have given them those boundaries. Aside from boundaries, the number one factor that I believe is key in raising, I don't want to say good kids, because there's no real good or bad, but the number one factor that is key in raising well-rounded children, emotionally healthy kids, I personally believe is communication. You have to talk about things. You have to discuss why rules are in place. I don't believe you can just give a rule and not explain how it benefits your child. Okay? So let's take social media usage. That's a hot topic in our house. And the reason that my kids aren't allowed to have social media is because I know about people out there that can come in contact with them via social media. So we have that conversation. We don't just say, no, you can't do this. We say, this is why. Video games, that's a thing in our house as well. And I'm not knocking you guys. Once again, we're not mom shaming or mom guilting. It's just something in our house we didn't feel was something we wanted to have our kids have. We live in an area where they're able to go outside and run and stretch their legs and play and explore and have adventure. So there was no need for them to be inside or indoors. But we had that conversation with them and we discussed it with them. When your kids get into trouble, I think it's important to not just shame them and punish them, but to explain the consequences of what has happened because of their actions and why that is a rule in the first place. I also believe that we have to communicate about the hard things, the tough things, the things that we don't really want to talk about. We need to talk about with our kids. You need to be openly talking to your kids about the dangers in life that are out there. Because if we stick our heads in the sand and pretend it's not there, it's not going to go away. If you have teens and preteens, you need to be discussing the topic of sex and having the open conversation in your house with your child. Because I promise you, they're hearing about it from someone, and it might as well be you in the manner that you want them to learn about it. And I also think that we have to own our shortcomings with our children. If we screw up, we have to own that. We have to communicate that with our kids and say, hey, my bad. I will tell you that I am guilty as the next person of losing my temper and yelling at my kid. I don't understand why they only listen when I yell. I can say it 3 times calmly. The 4th time, my voice gets raised and all of a sudden they listen. But you know what? When I know I'm out of line, I go and I apologize. And I say, hey, my bad. I shouldn't have done that. So I think that teaches our children that we can have healthy communication and we can talk through the entire process. At the end of the day, you guys, none of us are doing this perfectly. But you know what? We're doing it. We're raising our kids. They're growing up. They're going to be members of society, whether we like it or not. And we're all in this thing together. So I encourage you to find a group of friends that you can gain support from. I encourage you to know at the end of the night when you lay your head down on your pillow, you've done your best. Don't beat yourself up over it. Ask for help when you need to. And you guys, for the love of all things, celebrate your successes this Mother's Day. Celebrate yourself. Celebrate the fact that you are doing what I believe is one of the hardest jobs on the face of the planet. So to all of you mamas out there, have a fantastic Mother's Day. Spoil yourself, even if no one else spoils you. And to the moms in my life that have built me, thank you for being incredible human beings. Thank you for loving me, pouring into me. Thank you for always believing in me. Thank you for telling me that I could do anything that I set my mind to. I love you and I'm grateful for you. Happy Mother's Day, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And I hope that if you are a mama, that you got something that nourished your soul in this episode. That's always my goal, is that hopefully one person sitting at home heard something that they needed to hear. And as always, if you liked what you heard and you want to hear more episodes like this, do us a favor. Hop over to iTunes or whatever platform you listen to this podcast on. Write a review and let us know what you thought of the show. Go ahead and subscribe to the show so that you never miss an episode, and then share it with all of your friends. You guys, I can't wait to chat with you next week, but until then, go out and live your best purpose-filled lives.